Okay, so I wanted to talk to you guys about a subject that I've been seeing on Facebook very recently after the recent attacks that happened in Brussels, and also the same things that happened after, also what happened after the attacks in Paris and in November and in January of last year. And this is talking about whether or not people are racist because they don't change their status or because they don't change their photo to be the color of the flag that recently had an attack. Since we all know, I think, and are aware that there are terrorist attacks that are occurring in multiple places around the world, not just in the European continent. And I wanted to express myself on this topic and say that no, people are not being racist for only changing their status or expressing themselves when there is a terrorist attack in European soil or American soil, Western soil. And I'll give you the reasons why. So let's imagine that we're talking about an individual, and imagine that this individual, you, me, anyone, has their sphere of friends around them. And we're going to be much more we're going to be much more sensitive, to what happens to our friends and our family members. If something happens to my best friend, if his grandmother dies, we're going to feel, I think, a lot more empathy and a lot more sadness because we know them, we're involved in their life, and we can feel their pain. We have something in common. Conversely, we hear an old woman, we read an obituary, and an old woman or an old man has died, an old person has died. We don't really think about the fact that that older person is connected to people as well, that means that someone's grandfather has died and that there's pain and suffering going on in their lives. I think it's a very human emotion and a very human, thing to be focused on your sphere and on what happens around you. We can understand that there are things that happen around us and that other people feel pain, and we can empathize with that when we hear a story. But in general, we concentrate on our immediate sphere. I think it's the same with countries. And I think that societies who share a common history, a common culture, that they are going to naturally feel that's more, they're going to have a stronger reaction to an event than someone who is living in another continent outside of the Western sphere of influence. I think that if we are going to start saying that people are racist because they didn't change their Facebook status, this is actually a rather ethnocentric view of the world, because we're assuming that the rest of the world outside of the Western sphere is viewing these events and having the same reaction, the same pain that we are having, because the West is a great and powerful influence in the world. But I can give you an example of how that's not true. I used to live in Argentina a couple of years back when I was studying Spanish, and a shooting happened in the United States. And no Argentinian was coming to me saying, are you okay? How are you? I feel so bad for what's happening in your country. Facebook existed then and there was no uproar about it on Facebook among my Argentinian friends. Conversely, people in the United States were very much upset with what happened. Same thing in Europe. But it was simply not the case that the Argentinians, that wasn't in their sphere. That doesn't mean an Argentinian doesn't feel bad if they learn the news, but it's simply because they aren't attached to that. It's not in their sphere of influence. And I think that's a very normal thing. And that is actually quite ethnocentric to think that everyone must feel as bad as we do about what's happening in Europe. And that means if we don't feel bad for what happens there, then somehow we're racist or I'm doing something bad. But actually, it's a human phenomenon the world around. What I think that the media can do, what I think we could be doing better, is to get people to understand that what's happening currently is a global phenomenon. This terrorism that's affecting our societies isn't, hold on, the cats wanted to come and say hello. The terrorism that's affecting our society isn't isolated to the West, isn't isolated to Europe or the United States. And that we would benefit by having a media that gets people to understand that this is something very connected, and that the reasons are connected, and if we want a solution, it's not going to come just from the United States or from the European Union. It's going to happen from a world involvement. I think that's all I wanted to say on the subject. I just wanted to express myself about it, because I think there's been a little bit too much, in my opinion, finger pointing and saying that other people are bad because they're not feeling as terrible as they should about what's happening in Mali or in Côte d'Ivoire or any of the other places where tragedy is happening on a daily basis. So just a point to think about. Comment whatever you feel like, and yeah, there we go.